Support for Radio Friends comes from La Brunerie Financial, where they work to ensure a lifetime of financial security for people from all walks of life, from investment services to retirement plans. If you're looking for a trustworthy company that has the experience and knowledge to put your interests first, contact La Brunerie Financial, a community-based investment counseling firm since 1966. Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends on this Monday, September the 6th. It's Labor Day, right? National holiday. So good to have you with us today. And to help us celebrate Labor Day, we have none other than our singer, our songwriter, and our storyteller, Larry Brown. Good to have you here, Larry.
Good morning.
Now, you don't have the guitar today.
Well, it's a story day.
All right, and Story Day has to do with Labor Day.
Well, I've tried over the years to have a song or a story that's associated with work, employment, job experience, and that's the case today.
So this is not a tall tale.
No, it's not a fantasy. This is not a this is not a legend. Or it's a personal lived experience. So I have to tell folks up front, this is a true story.
Okay, so here is Larry Brown. Can I go ahead and set it up for you?
Yeah.
Here is Larry Brown with a true story on Labor Day.
It was the spring of 1973, and I was employed by the Indiana State Highway Commission, Division of Planning, Department of Roadside Development. Now, that's a story about how I got that job and why I had that job. But that department was sort of the catch-all for things that the highway department had to do. I mean, yes, it was about roadside development. It was about planning and building the designs for roadside parks and rest areas. But it also was sort of receiving a lot of other things that other departments didn't want. We were the primary office that wrote the environmental impact statements for proposed highway projects. And that meant noise and air pollution prediction for proposed projects. And it was also an area called outdoor advertising control. Now, there were some beautification laws that came down the pike through the federal system years before, and there were things like disguising junkyards. You had to put up a fence or trees or something, and it was controlling the billboards and the signs on highways that had federal money, primary routes. And our job was to determine the legality of these outside advertising structures. And so we would have to drive down the highway and take photographs. Now, we couldn't trespass on private property, but we had to take photographs, try to determine the size of that sign, the distance from the highway, to see whether it was legal or not. Then we had to look at records to find out when that sign was put up, because it might have gone in before the law, so it would be, quote unquote, grandfathered in. Well, that was our job. Well, I was assigned this particular time period to do Interstate 65 between Indianapolis and Louisville, about 100 miles or so of interstate. And I was working with a partner, and we would go out and do this work. Now, I have to tell you about our boss. He was a stickler for details, and he demanded, regimented everything. I mean, we had to be at work at 8:30, and we couldn't check out until 5 o'clock, and we had 10-minute breaks and a 30-minute lunchtime. And we had to be at our desk working or on a project working. There's no messing around. And he just, everything about the budget, you couldn't spend this, you couldn't do that. So for us to check out a vehicle from the state highway pool and take that vehicle was like, oh, this is dangerous territory. But we had to do that because we had to drive these distances. Well, it was coming up. We had about 20 miles left of I-65 down toward Louisville, Kentucky, and it was getting to be the time it would take to drive out to where we did our work and drive back. Then our time was spent driving. So we convinced our boss that it would be a good idea for us to check out the vehicle overnight and then be able to drive down there, do our work, stay down there and finish our work, and that would complete I-65. We also convinced him that it would be a good idea to have the vehicle the night before so we could get an early start. Well, knowing this was kind of shaky ground, we got him to agree to let John and I do that. I took the vehicle home. The next morning, got up to do an early start, went out to to start the car, and it wouldn't start. I opened the hood up, and the battery had been stolen in the night. So I had to call in and ask what to do, and my partner, John, had to come, and we had to go buy a battery, put it in the car, keep the receipts. So we were like 2 hours late getting on our early start. We drive all the way down, and we start doing our work. Now, we'd work one side of the highway, and then we'd come back on the other side of the highway. Now, that meant determining where that sign was located by little measurements that were imprinted into the concrete of the highway. There was a little number there every 100 feet, and we'd have to say this highway sign was located at this particular location. So that meant parking on the side of the interstate, looking at these concrete things, avoiding traffic, and then trying to figure out these signs. Well, we'd worked our way down finally to Louisville, got a cheap motel, and had a cheap supper because we were on this tight budget, you know. The next morning, we didn't know how we were going to finish, but we had that other stretch to do, and then the worry about where we were going. We were headed into Scott County, and there was already an incident that occurred. Somebody had shot a gun at a state vehicle because they were kind of nervous about, federal people coming into our territory. And we know, oh no, we're headed into Scott County. And sure enough, there were some signs that we had to determine property owners, which meant we had to go into the county seat, Scottsburg, look up property owners for these signs so that we could later contact them. Oh, we were nervous about that. We were running late, but we got into Scottsburg, got the information, and believe it or not, the particular signs we were looking at belonged to Ferris Feltner and the Feeler sisters. And that was their names, and it gave us a little bit of comic relief. But now getting back to Indianapolis, we were finishing our work. We had to turn in that car Friday by 4:30, and we're desperately driving in the interstate, hoping we won't get caught in the rush hour traffic as we get into Indianapolis. And believe it or not, we pulled into the motor pool just before 4:30 to get that car turned in and then back up to the office to check out. Mr. Cooper, of course, is monitoring all of our behavior. And Friday we left going, what a horrendous day. Finished the job, though, on I-65. Monday morning, we were all ready for a big thank you, job well done. And, of course, our boss was not of that inclination. It was like, okay, guys, your next project is, and back to work. But just as we sort of thought back, a typical day doing outdoor advertising control on the interstate.
That's a good story. You had me captivated with that story because I didn't know where it was going. It's wonderful, Larry.
And we ran into those kind of circumstances, figuring out the signs and checking out property owners, and it was.
Are you telling stories now for people?
Yes, I'm beginning now to get a few gigs lined up. So, at brownstory@hotmail.com is a way to contact me and see if we can line up a possibility of doing a program for you, for your club, your group, your church, or whatever.
Okay, if there's something you'd like to hear or see, well, I would love to hear from you as long as my voice holds out. Pepperp@missouri.edu. Have yourself a happy Labor Day. Bye-bye.